Assalamu alaikum students. Today our topic of discussion is chemoreceptor reflex, and the other reflex is Bainbridge reflex. So firstly we will discuss chemoreceptor reflex, and I have told you that this reflex is among the mechanisms of short-term blood pressure regulation. So we have discussed baroreceptor reflex, which is also a part of short-term blood pressure regulation mechanism. And this is another mechanism, the chemoreceptor reflex. The chemoreceptors are present in aortic bodies and carotid bodies. They are important when blood pressure falls to very low, that is up to 50 millimeter of mercury. So you have studied the range of 60 to 210 millimeter of mercury for baroreceptors, where in which range the baroreceptor reflex can work, that is 60 to 210 millimeter of mercury. And when the blood pressure is very low, up to 50 millimeter of mercury, chemoreceptor reflex will work. Okay. And the name indicates the chemo, so these receptors sense the chemical change. At this pressure there is increased partial pressure of carbon dioxide, while increase H plus ions and decrease partial pressure of oxygen stimulates the peripheral chemoreceptors. So the aortic bodies and carotid bodies can also sense the change in chemical. And impulses are carried along glossopharyngeal and vagi to vasomotor center and bring back to the vessels through sympathetic nervous system, likewise in the baroreceptor reflex, and control the blood pressure. So I told you the whole mechanism of chemoreceptor reflex. So firstly, for example, there is increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide, increase H plus ions, and decrease partial pressure of oxygen. So these three parameters from where the story starts. So when these three factors occur, there is a stimulation of chemoreceptors, and the impulses move from this is the condition of you should know vasodilation. So now the impulses are carried from glossopharyngeal and vagus nerve to the vasomotor center, where vasoconstrictor area is stimulated, and the signals from vasomotor center move to the blood vessels and heart through your efferent or motor nerve fibers, which are sympathetic nerves, likewise the baroreceptor reflex, and the heart rate increases, and then there is vasoconstriction occurs, and these all the effects, there is increase in blood pressure, and this increased blood pressure causes more oxygen supply towards the tissues. So this decreased oxygen from where the story starts, the story end up with the increased oxygen supply to the tissues. So this is the whole story for the chemoreceptor reflex. And the Bainbridge reflex, this is not Bainbridge, this is Bainbridge reflex. R is not there. So when arterial blood pressure increases due to increased blood volume, SA node and atria stretch. So when the blood pressure is increased, when so the more blood enters the right atrium. So when more blood is entered the right atrium stretched more, and when it stretched, and also the SA node is also stretched, it sends efferent impulses, sensory impulses to medulla, to vasomotor center, and the vasomotor center bring back the efferent sympathetic signals to the heart, which ultimately causes the increase in heart rate, the heart contractility. And this increase in heart rate or heart contractility causes the increase in cardiac output. So more blood moves towards the body. So this effect prevents damming up of blood in veins, atria, and pulmonary circulation. How? Because it increases the heart rate and heart contractility, so the cardiac output is increased, so the blood cannot pool in the veins. It moves forward towards the blood vessels, to the arteries, to the metaarterioles, to the capillaries, move forward. So this is Bainbridge reflex. When blood pressure is increased, when the atrial blood pressure is increased due to increased blood volume, SA node and atria stretch and send afferent impulses to medulla, sending efferent sympathetic signals to heart and increase heart rate and heart contractility. So this is the second, today's second reflex, and as a collective third reflex among short-term mechanisms. And the other factors, when there is fall in blood pressure, there is sympathetic stimulation, so that there is increased force of contraction of skeletal muscles and respiratory muscles. This results in venous return is facilitated, and this helps to maintain the blood pressure. So when there is decrease in blood pressure, as a compensation, sympathetic stimulation occurs, and this causes contraction of skeletal muscles and respiratory muscles, and these factors causes increase in venous return. As you know that when there is increased contraction of respiratory muscles, there is a more negative pressure, negative intrathoracic pressure, and this negative intrathoracic pressure sucks blood from the legs towards heart, so increases the venous return. And when there is contraction of more skeletal muscles, which put pressure on the vessels outside, and it also increases the blood flow in the veins and move towards the heart. So both these effects ultimately increase the venous return and thus helps to maintain the blood pressure. So this is the fourth one mechanism. And the fifth one mechanism, that is your CNS ischemic response, will be discussed in next lecture. So these are total 5 mechanisms: baroreceptor, chemoreceptor, Bainbridge reflex, then effect of muscles, skeletal muscles, and the fourth is very important, CNS ischemic response, which will be discussed in detail in next lecture.